Can everybody hear me if they're in there? All right. Hey, hopefully it sounds good. Someone said it sounds great, so I'm going to roll with that. What's everybody up to on this? Well, if you're in the US, it's probably still a Saturday night. It's Sunday morning for 3 more minutes here in Perth. So, from the future. We got a question already. What's up? This one from Change Strangers. Vibrato. Found my SRV Clapton style blues vibrato is okay, but for the life of me, I can't get a smooth BB King style pivot vibrato. Yeah, very underrated. I think a lot of people assume that with guitar, like the things that are popular are straightforward, and the things that maybe don't get used as much anymore are more difficult or something. I don't know. But let me bring up something, because I've got a semi-hollow, this feels fitting, right? Let's bring up something clean. So, I mean, the big thing, right, you can do a couple of things, I think, in general to work on vibrato. If you listen to the pitch, so the pitch variation, how wide it is and how fast it is, right? So you can control for those two things. Let's say you take, I don't know, I'm down a whole step at the moment. So this B note would actually be an A. But if you practice like to a quarter note, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an eighth. So you're controlling the tempo, and you're also controlling the pitch. And then, so you try to actually keep it in time. I think that's a big thing there. And then you can vary the pitch. And you've also got the thing where you've got that side to side, where you like pull back on the string a bit. The other thing you can do as well is how long you wait to do it. So if you were playing, you know, waiting a beat, or going, or that kind of thing. So rather than try to do exactly the same vibrato, you just work on the, I guess, foundational elements of it. So how long it takes you to apply the vibrato, the tempo of the vibrato, and then the pitch of the vibrato. And also, you know, for the wider rock thing, you know, a lot of that's a pull down mechanic versus a, where are we? You know, shake versus, yeah, it's very, very interesting. How about some Pat Thrall tones and phrases? I love Pat Thrall so much. It makes me so happy to see people know Pat Thrall. You know, you got to have that ADA flanger thing going on in there, right? Which I can add. Where's some chunk? Do I have a flanger in this patch? I do now. I actually have a setting I've got in there for playing. My favorite Pat stuff, though, is on the Hughes and Thrall album, right? This is cool, right? I'm so glad this has come up because there's a... so that's off the Hughes Thrall album. That's the first song called I've Got Your Number. Ryan and I actually play that when we do our little acoustic duo gigs, which is hilarious hearing him do all the super high Glenn Hughes stuff on there and people being like, what the fuck is going on? So, yes, Mechanic Jams, my man. I think you also asked earlier if that was a... is that your band's tune? Yes. So the thing I started with is a Ragdoll song called Playing God. Huge Pat Thrall fan. Good. The, what was I going to say? His rhythmic delay stuff. Okay, so I'm going to do this in the axe and I'll drag it over for all of you. I'll drag the window in because, you know, everyone knows this, right? Rhythmic echo. Often it's a dotted eighth note. So the idea is if you're playing eighths, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then you got a dotted, it's So there's your delays. So they're coming in between your eighth notes. Makes you sound like you're playing twice as fast. But I was listening to some of the Hughes Thrall stuff, especially that song where Pat, you know, the tempo they're playing at is like 1, 2. Okay, about 140 BPM, so... There's another song on there. Da-da-da, I think it's Hold Out Your Life. There's a really particular delay on there, and I was just assuming that it's the dotted eighth note thing. So let me drag the axe in, well, axe edit. I've got to open my system settings for this, do I? No, I don't. Cool. So, rhythmic dotted eighth note does the thing. But, I actually have this saved in here as PT delay. Very, very close to it is a quarter note triplet. I'll set these up on the exact same setting, but this is like super nerd stuff. But you can see at this tempo, a dotted eighth note's about 313, and a quarter note triplet's about 30 milliseconds faster. So not much. However, the difference is, you know, if you're playing that... you have this very sort of robotic sound out of it. Whereas with this, same... it's like the delay is a little bit rushed. It gives you this kind of like swing about it, right? So if we're playing that, I'm trying to do this in... It's so subtle, right? So dotted eighth. Anyway, that took me ages to figure out. I'm fairly certain that's the Pat Thrall delay thing. Yeah, crazy, right? Let me remove this as well. Hopefully you're all able to see that. But yeah, quarter note triplet. That's the Pat Thrall delay, kids. Hey, Jean-Claude Trans Am. Yeah, that's the other place I heard that delay very early in my musical development, was thinking Nuno was playing every single note in that, which he probably could. He's amazing. Please list the block setting for the Pat Thrall settings. If you've got my Fractal Blocks library, it's in there. It's called PT delay, but it's just a quarter note triplet. That's it. That's the rhythmic subdivision. You do all the same stuff you would do with a dotted eighth note, but you use a quarter note triplet instead. And yeah, that will get you the Pat Thrall delay thing. How cool is that? Turn the volume up to 11, hit a chord using the MP1. I would need to do some routing for the live stream stuff. It's a pain in the backside to get this ported in there. But I will do a separate live stream, I think, in the future, and just use the rack, because that would be fun. People would enjoy that. So what are we talking about? Ray wants to know something about drop tunings. Hey, Billy, what's going down in Orlando, man? I hope all is well. What are some tips to keep detuned strings in tune? So if you're in a drop tuning, like I am at the moment, I mean, obviously the most important thing is your actual guitar setup, and I'm sure you know how to stretch strings in. I feel like I moderate my attack by maybe 20-30%. So if I was playing in standard, but just like getting the same sound out of it just by pulling back a little bit, I think can help. I think a lot of people assume that you need to be beating the crap out of the guitar constantly for it to sound angry, but in fact, you can not beat the crap out of it all the time. You have a bit of that headroom in there. Played Randy Rhoads' warm-up diminished runs he played while on the soundcheck video he was on. I mean... You've got the classic... There's a Marty style thing that... You can tap them too. Dolfinado, the TV Mix 7. I've played around with it a little bit. It's an interesting phenomena, right? Like, even if you have the same mics and the same speakers, I know IRs are LTI and all that kind of stuff, but very, very difficult to match all the exact nuances with them. And I find when you do, like if you use a tone match EQ or something, often that has so many weird little peaks that you start getting phase issues and stuff like that. So, yeah, I haven't bothered for ages. It's one of those things where, you know, worst case scenario, I just use a different cab. I actually really like the Lurkst cabs in there. They have this, where is it? So, have a listen to this. It's a 4x12 Lurks with the Dynamic 2 on it. Sounds pretty good. Doesn't sound the same as this, but it's not bad at all. So I would just roll with a factory one, you know. Same thing if I was playing through a different cab to that cab, I'd just lean into the properties of that particular cab. Thanks, Yippee. Hope you're well. Greetings from Japan. How might you recommend for a Strat with a 6-point tremolo, brass or tusk? I mean, brass for Malmsteen, right? That's the main amount of fun. There was who was it? I think Ken Parker. May he rest in peace. He passed away recently, but he had some amazing videos up on his YouTube channel talking about all these elements. And he was talking about nut material and how brass was really trendy in the 70s. And, you know, basically did a bunch of testing and was like, well, once you start fretting notes, the sound of the nut is, you know, irrelevant, essentially. So if I'm going to listen to anyone, it's probably going to be Ken when it comes to those kind of things. I would say just go for, I mean, look, brass requires more work to modify. Tusk is maybe a little easier. So do the thing that's easiest to service. Am I on a break from touring at the moment? Yeah, the next thing I've got coming up, I'll be in the UK in August. So need some time at home, man. It's been a busy year already. And last year and the year before were the busiest I've ever been in my life. So just like stuff that's going on, you know, all those things you put off around the house. We're like, got to fix that, got to do that. Yeah, it's actually nice spending some time at home. The show is in Melbourne at the moment, doing a season. The cabaret that I normally play with as well. So they've got Simon Hosford on guitar, and Hoss is the boss. So I wish I could actually see it and see him play because he's so good. But yeah, that'll be the next away trip. It's nice spending some time at home. Do you have any advice for fretting hand posture and getting those fingers to move faster, trying to gain left-hand speed after neglecting it for years? Well, here's a fun exercise for you. Couple of fun exercises. Number one would be make sure you're not pressing too hard. So there's this Kiko Loureiro thing I saw years ago where, you know, he's doing just the old 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise. I forget this cable has one of these things on the end, so if I put it in the wrong place, you get no sound. So the Kiko thing is basically you practice that, right? Where you're not actually pressing the string into the fret, you're just making contact with your finger on the string. So no tension. And you start slightly pressing harder until you make... And that's it. That's how hard you need to press. Not... that's so much lighter even than... Like if you... So that'd be the first thing you can practice, is just sitting there and, you know, maybe take something like this. And do it so that you're not actually making the note. And then this exercise, I'm sure I've done a video on this one there. So you just increase the pressure slightly as you go. Because the harder you press, you start to lose that ability to, like, basically, I imagine you would be moving between different types of motor function. Where if you start pressing too hard, you're using... Yeah, and that's interesting. It's actually the faster you go, I find the more you've got to back off. I am using 10s at the moment. I'm in drop C though, so there's slightly less tension, but I just kind of use 10s on everything these days. I'm really not too fussy. So yeah, doing that kind of thing in the first finger. Tom Quayle has a great video on lazy first finger syndrome, which is one of the best. Like, all his instructional stuff's amazing, but the really simple stuff he talks about sometimes I think is super important. Your guitar setup matters as well, you know? All right, I'll play you guys another Ragdoll song after I answer this question from Michael. Have you tried running the 88 through the same old power amp Nuno used? I haven't. Those Macintosh power amps that they had. Yeah, that's a whole other level of tone questing. I used to just run into the effects return of the Marshall DSL for the longest time, so that's how that thing is calibrated in my brain. Let's talking about some legato stuff. I'll play you guys this. Oh, that's good fun. So there's some fun stuff in that, namely the the. The very Zack and Marty style, pentatonic thing, but you're playing it up, pull off, and a down. And anytime you add any extra notes on there, you just do an extra upstroke. That's the Tornado of Souls thing, right? And then there's this Paul Gilbert rip-off thing. Where you're playing, it's basically a minor 7th arpeggio, so string skip. He demonstrates it, I think, in A on Intense Rock. So that one's, that's just some dumb stuff. You can add a tap note on the top if you like. And oh man, I love playing this guitar so much. It's so fun. Yeah, super Zack. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that, Eric, and I hope you're well. No future Optus Stadium stuff, but Troy's there every fortnight with the Dockers up there. So if you're at a Freo game, and they're doing pretty well at the moment, so it might be worth going. You'll see him there. So and that riff's fun. It's basically like, how could I do an In Flames riff? But make it 80s rock. And and how many Paul Gilbert licks can I get into every solo? That's just my just my life. Axlinger, thank you, man. There you go. Some we're probably related somewhere back there, man. I mean, Canada and Australia on one hand, and the Serb thing on the other. So, somebody asked me, Mega Man 2 vibes. Yes, thank you. Oh man, I love Mega Man so much. So much. Hey Stook, how are you, dude? I hope you're well. Hope you're smashing the classical. What brand guitar is that? This is a Cilia, or Celia, depends how you want to say it. It's a Maltese name, so I believe it's Chich. But, I think everybody else says Celia. So, yeah, man, this is one that Charles built, I think, in 23 or 24. And when I was in Sydney, got to hang out with him a little bit at his workshop. And he let me borrow this for a few shows. And then I gave the guitar back. And I kept thinking about it. And I was like, if you ever sell that, you want to let me know? So, yeah, that's how. And that year in particular, I've been playing my old 335 a lot. So I was on a big semi-hollow kick. And a 335 has a center block, right? All the way through. This has a center block that goes to about here. But it's not a separate center block. The entire back, right? So it's one big piece of mahogany. And then he's carved all of that out of it and put a solid top on there. So there's no laminate stuff or anything. So it's kind of like a Les Paul-y thing. Semi-hollow, yeah. There's a lot going on. What's the guitar behind the door? There's a bass. So, where are we looking? Here? Is this the one you mean? That's a Sir Modern. And then over there, there's a I cannot triangulate myself. This is hilarious. That one there. There's a 335 there and a bass 6. So, yeah, man, there's a lot going on. Been loving playing through my travel classic, Dadgad. Dadgad's just beautiful, isn't it? Ah, the lovely Hunter Valley. How is it over there? It's a sweet day here in Perth. What's your philosophy on building out a guitar collection? Have you noticed any trends for specs, designs you tend to like or dislike? My philosophy for building out a guitar collection, yes. Look, I had like all the bases covered, so at this point it's just pure compulsion. But I think like a lot of people, you go through you got to like what you like. What is that? My cat's getting into something. I can hear the chink. He's probably trying to lick the olive oil or something. I'll go check on it in a little bit. Yeah, I think everybody's going to have their particular thing they like the most, and then they'll probably end up with a lot of variations of that. But what I've found is I kind of oscillate between, Stratty thing, very traditional Stratty thing with flat radius and humbucker and, modern design elements, whether it's a Sir and Ibanez, the other Chilier I've got, and then like the Gibson style thing. So Explorer, 335, Les Paul, which this falls into, there's a double cutaway, shorter scale. I think the scale length thing is probably the big one. You're going to prefer the shorter or the longer thing for certain styles. I know if I'm playing the chunk stuff. What I've found though is just having my guitar set up well is the big thing. Yeah, you can hear the cats. Cats having a sing. Hey, buddy, you want to come and show everybody what you're bringing me? He's probably bringing me one of his toys. Are you a great hunter? Having your guitar, like no matter how many guitars you have, just before you go and spend a bunch of money on another guitar, get your existing guitar set up well by somebody, and that can make a massive, massive difference. Massive difference. And hey, bro, I hope you're well. Yeah. Doing real good. Love the extra snap we hear in the room with semi-hollow electric. Miss it in a mic mix. Yeah. The thing I like about this guitar is even unplugged, you kind of push it and it's almost like some of the overtones make it sound like it's a bit overdriven or something. I think that's the next thing I do want to acquire is a neck through. I played a Jackson Soloist when I was in Adelaide at a music store there, and it was a neck through, and I was like, oh my God, neck throughs are awesome. So yeah, I would say at some point there's going to be one of those there. The other instrument is my nylon 8-string carbon fiber banjo. What a lord. I love that, man. Love it. In the 80s, LA had the Sunset Strip, anything comparable in that time frame in Australia that us non-Australians wouldn't know. Yes, pubs. Australian pub rock. Massive. That was music in Australia. Like, where you had a sort of pub. Every town had a couple of pubs. You had a pub on a corner. You go and see a band. That's what you did on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Didn't matter if it was an original band, a cover band. They're doing a bit of both. You go to the pub. Like all the legendary Australian bands from the 70s and 80s started off as pub bands. AC/DC started off as a pub band. Cold Chisel, Icehouse, In Excess. They were all sort of playing that circuit. That's the pub rock thing. Midnight Oil, all these legendary bands. And you had like the Australian post-punk scene in the early 80s was really big. And then that sort of morphed into a bunch of these, that's how you made it. You'd start playing the pubs. You'd get good as a band. You'd start touring regionally, and then hopefully you get picked up, onto a label, and that was the thing. So yeah, Australian pub rock is such a thing. Very, very no nonsense, to the point. You got to keep people entertained. You got to keep them drinking. You got to keep them moving. That's what it's all about. I'd love to try Tom Anderson with the Gibson scale. Yeah. So my other Chilier, which I'll make sure there's not a cat behind me that I'm going to run over. This one is, firmly super strat. Reverse headstock and all, but this has a Gibson scale. it's just slightly easier to do all the stupid. You know, your Nuno-isms. How does he play it? Yeah, rocks us far out. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Where I think even if you look at Europe and you look at the east coast of the US at that time, you had a lot of bands like that, but you sort of had to be in that one particular place to get it done. Yeah. Oh man, the roasted maple on this thing. Look at the back of the neck. This actually isn't roasted. It's just flamed, and I think there's an oil finish. But it's certainly nice. Certainly nice. I've got Charles making me another one of these at the moment, so that'll be cool. Basically a hardtail version, because I love this. But, you know, as a hardtail native, if I want to take this out, I'd love to just do some ragdoll shows with a guitar like this. It's so comfortable. It's so striking. It's so fun, especially the reverse headstock and everything. But being able to just quickly tune down to drop C would make me very, very happy. Very, very happy. So yeah, that hopefully in the next couple of months, next year or something, you'll see that. Believe me, my brain does not keep up at that speed. If my brain had to, I would not be able to. That's the whole point. You practice it so it just bypasses the conscious thought stage. Hey, Scott, more Priest. I have just finished filming a Priest riffs video, and it was like impossible to get it down to 5. There's so many good ones, right? Digging that one. Man. Oh, the Sentinel, yes. I've been meaning to sit down and actually learn that one. Are you going to ever record some ragdoll shows? We got a bunch up on YouTube. If you look up our Live at Cherry Bar, it's basically a bootleg that I mixed. There's that. We've got another live album that's audio only, and we played a show in Adelaide a month or two ago that was multi-camera. A friend of mine who happened to be in town, who's a videographer, filmed the whole thing, and I just saw the cut of that. So he's also, I just realized I spent the spelled live wrong on here, so it's the LT liver hang. But yeah, that one's come out really, really cool. We, all day festival, we were the only band when it rained, and halfway through our set, the power went out. So we'd put all this sort of time and planning into having everything ready to go, and I think we ended up playing 5 songs. But sometimes shit happens, so I think the 5 songs turned out really, really nice. The Sentinel. Oh, man. Been listening to Defenders of the Faith in the gym the last week or so. I've gone through all these, all the Priest riffs and being like, I've never really listened to that album so much. I love it. Let's do. It's got that thing going on. Yeah, this. Yeah, just a little bit of 11/8, boys. Just that maneuver, like that's the thing that spawned every 80s metal riff, right? Oh, dude, that would have been sick. Oh, just the way it sounds, like that's the yeah, I mean the program drums. Look, they're like era appropriate, right? They're once you know that fact, you're like, oh yeah, okay. They were having some fun playing around with that. Sydney, Melbourne dominated the music market, so you never had one place to discover talent. Yes, I mean Baby Animals are a great example. Bunch of people who grew up in Perth, moving over to Sydney, and yeah, they did pretty well, didn't they? Do I ever listen to Tesla much? How do you play that riff? Tesla was so good live. We played a festival with them years ago now, and I knew they'd be good, but far out, they were a great live band. Tesla and Kix, I think, are two bands who really surprised me with how amazing they were live. Let's see. Yeah. How does that go? That's right. Yeah, amazing band, live band. Like, would recommend if you ever get a chance to see them. I only noticed the triggered snare on Dream Theater's images and words a year or so now. It drives me nuts. Yep, it's part of the sound though, man. Like, it's like Thin Lizzy Live and Dangerous. I always assumed was just 100% live. It's a studio album with some dubbed crowd noise and like probably Brian Downey's live drumming, because Brian Downey was amazing. And everybody else in that band, probably like to have a drink and some other things. So, yeah. So, my Judas Priest theory is Screaming for Vengeance, British Steel, right? They're their own thing. And then the Terminator movie comes out. And then the rest of the Judas Priest catalog is Terminator music, right? So the first Terminator movie comes out, and then you get Defenders of the Faith, you get Ram It Down, you get Turbo Lover, that's all Terminator music. And then, Painkiller's around, actually Painkiller's probably slightly before Terminator 2, but it's Terminator music. That's what it is. Yeah. Hey, but if people are into live albums, you give them something with some crowd noise, and, that's great. Yeah. Hey, man, you got to know how to land on your feet. It's like the most important skill as a skateboarder is how to fall. When you know how to fall over, that's the thing. Where does Maiden Summer in Time fall into the Terminator realm? Yeah, it's definitely Terminator music. Seventh Son is slightly more Terminator to me. This is just a whole thing, right? I literally think it's the synthesizer sounds that they're using that remind me of that. Yeah, but like metal bands, the metal band Terminator era. And here's the thing, right? Think of the aesthetic of Terminator 2. It's the aesthetic of like Guns N' Roses, like the post Guns N' Roses era, where it's suddenly, instead of being all about like makeup and spandex and leather, it's more about just kind of like, denim, torn up denim and a band shirt, and it's a bit more punk. So yes, Summer in Time is more in the Blade Runner realm. Thank you, Scott. Blade Runner to Terminator, that's 1985 to 1990 as a metal band. You got to choose which way you go. Only Street Country Club play live, but replace kick and snare with samples and auto-tune the edit. That's live music. Solar Angel, yeah, man, you guys are... It's a whole thing, right? Like Racer X. Second Heat. And it's the midpoint of Blade Runner and Terminator. Whereas Street Lethal is, I don't know, maybe a bit more Terminator. I think it's just the whole, like, the like California, Arizona, Nevada desert where they filmed all of that stuff plays into that. There's a lot of those bands did their music videos there. It's, obviously probably a lot of the same people who were doing special effects for those movies, and videography ended up doing music videos as well. So yeah, Y&T. I only know Summertime Girls, and I know it badly, so what a great band. Triumph as well. The thing I love about the US, and we discovered this the first time we went in 2012, you get a hire car and it's got all the radio stations, and you just put some random radio station on, and they have a 10-minute Triumph live song where 7 minutes is Rick's live solo. And you're just like, oh my God, I can't even find this on Spotify at the time. You need to hear Mean Streak. All right. I'm doing it. Let's hear it. Meniketti's a monster. So this is from 83. All right. Please go to D.
I'll tell you why. She got a mean streak, but you love her so much you don't want to see a mean streak. No sense that you want to lose mean streak. What's your name in your face, but you're kissing her feet. You're never good enough in the eyes of a woman with a mean streak. Every time I look at your boy, I can see you.
key change.
She got a mean streak, but your name's so much you don't wanna see a mean streak. I know she's got some other mean streak. What's her name in your face, but you're kissing her feet? Mean streak. You're never good enough.
Well, thank you, Scott. Yet again, you have absolutely sorted out my life. It's like you've got a bit of Priest in there, obviously, but like that reminds me of Sabotage. Bit of Scorpions, bit of... You know what this almost sounds like? And I think it's probably because they're playing V's in the videos. Like if Annihilator were a hair metal band, you know, I've seen heaps of interviews with Jeff Waters where he's like, oh yeah, you know, I write heaps of riffs and most of them end up sounding like Whitesnake or Judas Priest. So I throw those in the bin until I come up with something I like. Yeah, man, 1983 would have been a fun time to be in a rock band. And just that like... And then the key changes and yeah. Tune down half step in the... What I'm trying to catch up with what's going on. Yes, T2 is the best of a whole bunch of genres, in fact. Yeah, man, what a sick song. Yeah, actually, it's got that Sammy Hagar thing. Did you... I had this video, like a DVD that a friend of mine got for me, I think when I was in high school, so I was 16 or 17. His family went to Bali for a holiday. It was like the equivalent of, I don't know, going to Mexico for a weekend with his family. He came back, he's like, oh, hey, man, I got you this 50-cent DVD from, you know, this pirated thing. I just had a bunch of music videos on there. And, yeah, like random 80s stuff I had never heard in my life before. But they had that HSAS Missing You song there. I was like, what? Sammy Hagar did something with Neil Schon? Like, what on earth is this? So, yeah, that I always think of. Yeah, Sammy's just got that... Actually, there's a straight line from AC/DC to Sammy Hagar, and it goes through Judas Priest. You know how, like, you know, an AC/DC riff might just be... And then they'd have... Judas Priest would have... And then you'd have, like... And then you'd have that... All that kind of stuff. Yeah, man, Montrose inspired Van Halen in a massive way, right? Ronnie was a guitar god in the 70s. They were the... I've seen people describe them as the American Zeppelin, which I can believe. Ronnie Montrose and Frank Marino. So underrated. So underrated. Yeah, I think a lot of, you know, and this is a thing, right, with hindsight. The Van Halen was great, Eddie was great, right? But the idea that he's this like singular genius that came up with everything that had ever been done in rock guitar is like, man, you go back and listen to all the albums around that time and you can hear that emerging. And Van Halen were really, really good, and Eddie was a pretty special player, but also, you know, he wasn't the only one doing cool stuff. I think it just kind of gets chunked. Yeah. Yes. The other thing that I heard recently that I was a bit embarrassed that I'd actually never checked out was Gary Moore's Coliseum 2 stuff. Like, he's fusion beast. So good. So good. All right. It is close to 1 o'clock here. I'm actually going to bounce, but I'm going to go and listen to Y&T, Scott. So, I'll answer one. Oh, the Lab Series L5 Amp Club. Yes, I was talking about the L5 with Troy the other day. We were having a bit of a Thai table chat. It gets so fast and fluid. Thank you. I'm glad you think so. It doesn't feel like it most of the time. This is what I would prescribe. When I was 16 or 17, I got Intense Rock, Paul Gilbert on VHS. So all this stuff, you know, go and watch that and learn a couple of the licks. The other thing that maybe the last 5 or so years I've been doing heaps of is, you know, I've always enjoyed players like Holdsworth who use a lot of legato. So the whole like hammer on from nowhere. Getting that stuff happening. So that and playing lots of rhythm guitar. Yeah, go and learn some Megadeth and some Metallica and Slayer songs and get those rhythm chops super tight. Because I think that's a thing that probably helped my playing as much as practicing the standalone lead stuff. So, any plans to do an updated home studio tour? Scott, I'm just going to go and listen to Tank now that you've mentioned that. So, any plans to do an updated? Yes, soon. I still need to do some like treatment in here. It's an ongoing thing. We moved in here 18 months ago now, and there's still like cardboard boxes where I'm like, oh, what's in that? I should probably check that. So I need to do that and organize a few things. But yeah, by the end of the year, I'll do a walkthrough. I don't have a day job if you want to get good at guitar. Hey man, I teach some people who, they work like 60, 70 hours a week in very highly stressful roles, and then they also chop out on guitar. So I'm like, man, what are you putting in your cornflakes? So, all right. Peace, everybody. Love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Be well. Be well.